Hello and welcome to Nbyula Talks. Before we begin, we have a few updates and reminders for you. We would love to have you be part of our Nbyula community. And you can do so by logging on to www.nbyula.com, where you can join communities related to your area of interest, register for upcoming Nbyula Talks, book one-to-one skylifts, and view other upcoming events. You can also take this opportunity to connect with fellow learners or the speaker by sending a connection request. When you connect with the speaker, you will be able to contact them directly as well as receive updates about their upcoming talks. Kindly note that during this session, you will not be able to switch on your camera or unmute your mic. To ask questions during the talk, go to the audience chat, type your question, and select Post your question. If your question has not been answered during the talk, you will be notified once it's been answered, or if your question has not been answered during the talk, you can go to www.nbyula.com and spin a quest, and your questions will be answered. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this talk broadens your horizons and takes you to new learning heights.
Hello everyone, welcome to Nbyula Talks. I am Priyanka Cholera, the Community Engagement Associate at Nbyula. Before we go ahead with today's talk, I want to introduce the platform to you. Nbyula is a marketplace for international students who want to pursue higher education in a foreign land. We enable this by connecting you to a mentee who has studied in the foreign land or has studied in your desired university. And Ankit today is one of the scholars with us. To give you a bit introduction about today's session, it is going to be based on the Inlaks scholarship and Ankit's experience of studying in Netherlands. Ankit works as a urban planner, and he uses his education to make the cities better for all of us. So over to Ankit. Ankit, you can introduce yourself to our audience and tell a bit about what you do.
Hi Priyanka, thank you for inviting me on this. So I am an architect and urban planner, and I co-run Sensing Local. It's an environmental phase do tank. We follow the urban living lab model, which is we focus on co-learning, co-creating, experimentation, and we focus on environmental issues in Indian cities. So looking at air pollution, waste management, sustainable mobility, urban poverty, anything that deals with climate change, environment. That's our focus. And everything that we do has a component of participatory planning and design, and that runs horizontal through all the work that we do. Most of the work cuts through governance as well, urban governance, because you can't really do planning well if you're not engaged with governance. Yeah.
That's amazing, Ankit. And like on behalf of the audience, I would just like to express gratitude on how important your work is. So let's start with the Inlaks scholarship. So Ankit, before we go ahead with the entire scholarship application and everything, would you like to educate our audience what the scholarship was about and how did you find out about it?
Yeah, so Inlaks scholarship is basically given by Inlaks Shivdasani Foundation, based out of Bombay. And it's mostly catering to people who are going abroad for their masters and are seeking a certain kind of specialization within their master's program. It is one of the, I did this, so I must put a disclaimer that I got this in 2011, 10-11. And at that point, it was the only Indian scholarship that was absolute. By absolute, I mean they not only paid for tuition of my college, they also gave me a monthly stipend. Plus, there were some other benefits like support to travel around Europe during my summer holidays. And it's a no holds bar scholarship in the sense they did not ask anything of me. They just gave me the support to do whatever I wanted to do best, and kind of just let me do my thing.
Right. So that's informative. So this scholarship is mainly for students who are aiming to pursue education outside India, right?
Yeah, so it was primarily for that. At this point, I must say that Inlaks has diversified. There are many things that they're doing, supporting now. At that point of time, they were looking at supporting disciplines that inherently were not as commercially centric or, like things that don't get that much support. So you can look at their
Right.
website for the specialities they support and don't support. but they have diversified a lot. So they support the arts a lot more than they did earlier. They support fellowships, residencies now. But the program I was a part of was supporting the master's program, whether it was 1 year, 2 year, didn't matter. But I think it was at the benchmark of 100,000 US dollars at a maximum. Yeah. So I got supported for the urban planning program, which was also a little bit new at that point. I don't think any urban planner had got supported.
Right. And when you look back to it today, like urban planning is very important. Like you hear people saying all the time, like there is no places for like a children to play in parks, or there's no places to walk in the city. So I believe,
Yeah.
to my best knowledge, that you graduated in 2008 and you pursued your masters in 2011 after having some professional experience. Can you walk us through
Yeah.
the process of deciding like this is the right time for me to take my scholarship and what went into the application process?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I graduated 2008, and I think after that I was working as an architect both in Bangalore and Bombay. And I think there were two pivotal moments for me. One, I got a chance to work on designing public toilets for Mumbai Railways for an NGO that was sort of bidding for it, and that was a very important moment because I actually got Mumbai is a city where architecture alone is not about building. The fabric always comes with you, and so really trying to do this sanitation. It was a huge sanitation problem. It's not just the toilet design; it is how the toilet interacts with the railway station and the railway station design itself. And so it was really about learning that hey, there's so much more to the fabric and the context of it than just the building. And as architects, we tend to just focus on the building because that's the brief, right? And so I really got interested in the economic side of this, in the larger sort of causality of why a problem is getting solved. At the same time, I think a little bit after that, I got a chance to work on the fort management plan, which is the urban management plan for the fort area of Bombay. That's a large part of the South Bombay area, and it was a chance to work on a size of. So I was just collating research essentially, but I really designed the entire report and put together maps and all of these research that was over 6 7 years, and that was a glimpse into what urban planning is. And I didn't even know the term at that point, I think. And only through that project I really discovered that hey, I incline towards that because as a person I've grown up in Agra and Nainital. I've seen half a hill fall down in Nainital. I've seen Yamuna turn black in front of me. So I've always been concerned about environmental issues, and I know they are man-made. We are in the Anthropocene. But to then find an instrument that can address them was a discovery to me. That oh, planning exists. This is what planning is. So I think those two were kind of moments for me that really clarified for me that this was something I wanted to do. I also was seeing sort of myself not being very interested in designing bourgeois houses and stuff. So it also came from there.
Like I grew up in Bombay all my life, so I can
Yeah.
second you on that. That
Yeah.
I read somewhere like design it not is not what it looks, but it's what it does. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
agree. I totally agree with you on the point. So when you decided, look, I want to do urban planning and I have decided my
Yeah.
niche, how did you go about applying to the university? And collaterally, how did you go about applying to the scholarship?
Right. So, incidentally, I had worked on at like 2008 is when there was a competition where one of the buildings in TU Delft campus in Netherlands got burned down, and I was involved in that competition to redesign it. So I kind of discovered TU Delft, Netherlands at that point, and I kind of read up a lot about it. So I was like really interested in what they had to do and what they were doing in the university. I think when my frame of mind also at that point, like I only discovered planning as there's a lot to planning. It's a very wide discipline, and for many architects who apply to it, it's a very new discipline. I don't think many people recognize that, and it's a completely different thing. It's not an extension. It's its own thing, and then you can lean more towards the technical side. You can lean towards more design side. You can lean towards social sciences, economics. There is super specialization even within this. There's transport planning. There's a lot of it now, I think. At that point, I didn't know that much, but I think what I was interested in was largely looking at the larger horizon of planning and trying to approach it from a perspective that was a little bit more European, because I saw like EU is more comparable to India as a federal system, and EU has more compact cities. US that way has more diverse. It has more sprawl. So I was more in favor of trying to learn models of EU and city building in the EU because it favors what our cities are like. And so I was kind of sure that I wanted to go to Europe. I was also sure that I wanted to go to places where there was a history of progress. And so Netherlands, Britain, Germany have been, even Spain to an extent, have been pioneers of what modern planning is. So kind of knowing what environment I wanted to be in was clear. I did go through a couple of courses, and the second thing is language is a very important aspect. Many of the European countries, language you have to watch for what language is being used in the colleges and the course. So US is very easy that way because English all the way, right? But in Europe, that's not true. And so amongst the many colleges, I was looking at cost of the course, timeline of the course, what was I going to do in that course, and then looking at other peripheral factors of what focus areas I could go in, what is the structure of that thing, and kind of going at it from there. So those were some of my criterias. I did apply. I At that point I only had 30,000 rupees in my pocket, so I could apply to only two courses, um, and I applied to UCL college in the UK. They had a planning course which was 1 year long, and then I applied to TU Delft, which had a 2 year course. I was in favor of a 2 year course because I wanted the immersive experience, and I had already worked for 2.5 years in India, done a 5 years architecture, so I kind of was favoring that. So a lot of your course design works like that. But now at this point, reflecting back, I think 1.5 year courses are okay too. I think it's pretty immersive these days. So I don't have that as a condition anymore. Yeah. Oh yeah, the scholarship. Sorry, the second part of the question. So my parents didn't have the money to fund something like that. I didn't have the kind of money to fund it either. And I think for my parents, because when you're that young, your parents are the first people you kind of have to talk to because money is theirs, right? And so I think they were clear that hey, getting into this debt is a bad idea. So I kind of made a long list, which quite famous at one point, of all the scholarships that are available across India. And I think there were 35 on my list that I either called or visited physically. And I remember at least visiting 15 offices myself and getting rejected by all of them. And Inlaks was my last option. I even got rejected by the JN Tata scholarship because they were like, "We'll give you 4 lakhs. Where will you come up with the rest?" I was like, "I have no idea." So I think for me, Inlaks were literally my last scholarship and literally my last hope. So I was fortunate enough to get that. Yeah. So it's a matter of discovery for these scholarships. They were very difficult to find back in the day. I don't know if it's improved now.
Yeah. I believe now we have platforms like Nebula and scholars like you just volunteering and giving back to community, and like they say like rejection is redirection, so everything worked out well for you at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ankit, if today somebody wants to apply for Inlux scholarship as well as apply like for masters abroad, what are the things they need to keep in check? Like starting from grades and for scholarship SOP or everything, if you can
Yeah.
make a list of these things.
So I think every university has an SOP. I think I end up mentoring a lot of people basically when they go abroad and they ask me the same questions. I think everyone tries to find what the secret sauce is, but the secret sauce is right in front of you. It is you, and it is a story you have to tell. And I think the only advice that was given to me, I asked an Inlaks scholar, "How do you get the scholarship?" And he said, "Just be you." And that's actually true. So one of the things I would sort of tell you is that, of course, SOP is important, all of these, but they are all instruments of only one thing. What is the story that you would like to tell about yourself that is convincing enough to not only for colleges to give you the place because they want you there, but for scholarships to give you money because they need you to go through that experience. What is that story? How compelling is that story? And what is the evidence? And I must stress this, what is the evidence that you are going to do what your SOP says you would like to do? By evidence, I mean, what are the places you have worked in? Have you tried to learn what urban planning is? Do you know what urban planning is? What was your experience in having trying to learn that? A lot of people make the leap without knowing anything. It's very dangerous. So it is very important to look at money going to a college as an investment in yourself. If you had 35 lakhs, 50 lakhs in your pocket, would you just go and spend it like that? The answer is no. So the same research that you would go do to buy a car, you should go do in a university. And I think people see universities as this golden golden crown somewhere that once you get that, life will be okay. There's no such thing. If you don't get scholarships or you don't have the money, you will be drowning in debt. And that is not good because you'll be doing the work that you do not want to do. So it is very, very important to be truthful and be authentic to your story, and then understand whether is this the right point of time that I should go. Do I know enough about what I'm going to do next? And then if you're sure about what you want to do, tell a compelling story about yourself. And I used to do this narrative every night because I used to call up these guys, scholarship guys, every day, right? I used to be like, hey, what is that story? I have 1 minute on the call. What is that story? So I think it's very important to kind of be mindful and be articulate about the story, and any chance you get, be able to tell that story. And that's it. Your portfolio is a manifestation of that story. SOP is a manifestation of that story. Everything is the same thing. So story and evidence. Those are the two things you should focus on. Everything else it comes from there.
Right. Like you said, you would approach people to help you, right? And now you are on the other end who is helping people. So,
I only
what
approached
is
one person and he sent me a one-line sentence. He said, "Be you." That is all I got.
okay?
I give hours away for people, but that's the best advice, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the importance of a mentor when you're applying outside India or when you're applying for these scholarships?
I think the most important thing is to find people who are currently in the schools to understand what is going on right now. A lot of stuff on these websites is not updated or it's not enough. You do not understand what these colleges are up to. And so you have to, so for me, there's a difference between a fact checker and a mentor. Mentor is the person that will guide you to understand yourself and your pathways. That is the kind of stuff I'm doing right now, and that's the kind of stuff that I do with other people. But there is also a need for a fact checker. You need to check that if I'm going to Rhodes Design College, what is this college doing right now? And what is that person's experience now? What are the opportunities now? I think people think that colleges have remained static and they are all living organisms. If the faculty changes, your experience will change. If that school is going through some kind of turmoil, your experience will be turmoil too. So one has to go and check these colleges, list them out, go to, like, make a list, make a short list. Okay, these are 10 colleges. What is the difference between one course from the other in all of these 10 colleges? Why are they different? Who's leading this work? So what will you be given when you reach there? What is the cost of living out there in that place? Is it a university town? Is it like a populated town? What is life going to be? So these kinds of questions is what you have to go for. Imagine you're going to live there for a year or two, spending most of your parents' savings. So you have to kind of really analyze and visualize, importantly, what is that life going to look like? When I enter that classroom for 1 year, what am I going to get out of it? What is going to happen after my 1 year or 2 years of that course? Am I going to work there? So I was very clear that I wanted to work in Netherlands. The difference was there was an economic crisis there. I did work for a year, but then after that I couldn't get hired because they didn't want to hire an Indian after they had fired 50% of the Dutch staff. These are realities. Thankfully, I didn't have debt, but if I had debt, I would be in half a crore of debt. So these are kind of pragmatics that one has to say that, okay, how easy is it to work? What is the work visa like? So, I mean, if you just make a list of all the things that I'm saying, those are your core tick boxes that, okay, how difficult is this place? What is the language? Are people social? What kind of personality are you? And so how will you adjust in this? Living abroad and working abroad seems very romantic, but it's actually very challenging as well. Most people haven't stepped out of their house. They have never lived alone. It causes all kinds of new problems that they've never faced. So it's extremely important to be mindful of that experience and then see if that environment fits you.
Ankit, I think you have given a great reality check for everyone who wants to pursue studies abroad. And I think that is what Nebula stands for, like to know before you take that decision and be well informed and through the people who have already been there, done that. So, circling back to the question of scholarship, I guess what the audience, I mean, the students today would like to know is that if you could go back to the time like 2011 and if you had to like reapply for the scholarship and choose a major, what different scholarships also you would look at and what factors you would keep in mind while deciding a major?
I mean, I pretty much got the golden goose, so I
Yeah.
can't do better than that, right? So I think it's So I can't speak for a different scholarship because I did get what I want. Um,
Yeah.
I wouldn't change my major either. Like I think my course was pretty good, but I think the maybe what the outcome was fine, but I think the pathway to that could have been better. Like I would have applied to a few more US universities because I like the flexible academic structure. So the thing is, European academic structures are different from the like what they do in colleges is different from the US. European is a little bit more strict, rigid. US is a little bit more liberal. I have found myself more gravitating towards more flexibility and agility now. So if I knew that that suited my personality, I would have probably opted for that. I don't have regrets per se, but I limited my options because of a perception of something. So you should know how education systems differ and what suits your personality. Do you want to be somebody who wants to make choices on the go? Do you want to design your course, or do you want to follow a more structured approach? Okay, so based on yourself, you have to cater to yourself. What suits me best? And I think most people don't do that. They think the other person will do something good. Nothing will happen. You have to make sure that the other thing suits you, and then work at it from there. So I think my assumptions were some of them were false. I would change that, but I think the end result is fine for now. Yeah.
Great. So, if you would just tell our audience about the overall experience of working in Netherlands or studying in Netherlands, like how was it, like in a nutshell, like as a student, like the life in Netherlands?
Um, so Netherlands is one thing about great about the country is it's a small country and it's super connected. So traveling is very easy. So I used to go to Amsterdam every weekend. It's like 45 minutes away from there. So traveling in the country is very important for education purposes as well as cultural experiences. So it's an English-speaking country. Everyone speaks English. Culturally, it's very different, but from a language perspective, you feel you can navigate most of the environment. Um, I think otherwise, like, as an environment, it's culturally we are a little different. They're more structured, they're more straightforward as people. So I would say overall it was a good experience, but it's not a very social experience. They are a little bit less social in that sense, unlike we are. Their densities are different. Um, so I think I like the winters. I like the fact that we have weather. It snows at some point. There is sun on the other. They really enjoy their weather. So I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed a certain kind. I this understanding that they leave home at 18, and so their sense of maturity is very high. So that was a huge learning curve. In India, I think people don't grow up till they're 27, 28 as well. So that way, really understanding the choices other people are making, the fact that you could take off after 1 year, go do an internship somewhere and come back, was a huge revelation. That education need not be a one stage, one life situation, but you can be constantly learning. That was new to me. I never thought about it like that. So they come in and out of universities. They treat education more like learning. We treat education like, hey, I have a badge. I have done my masters, and now I'm good for life. That's not true in reality at all. So I think that kind of stuff is really important. It's a great place for somebody going, and in fact, the number of Indians applying to TU Delft is huge now. When I was applying, there was like one more person in the course with me, and there was like only one person before that. So it was really like not that well known. Even though it's an extremely good university, Indians did not go there as much. But yeah, now it's like pretty loaded with Indians.
Mm. Thank you so much, Ankit. You have answered every question with such a personal touch, and it won't be justice if I don't check the chat box here. Like it's really flooded with a lot of questions. So, do you mind if I take questions from there now?
No, sure.
So, first things first, Bipin is asking, what is the scope of jobs and employment after studies in Netherlands? I mean, I understand when you were studying there, there was a, I think, recession after that, so you couldn't explore that a lot. But if today, what is
Yeah.
the situation if you know about it?
So when I was there, there was a 1 year visa. So you could apply for a 1 year visa and then be able to be there. So that way, it's a great amount of time to exist. So you can take internships during that period. You can do a lot of stuff. You can also just be. So it gives you that residence, that flexibility to be there. They also have startup visas. At that point, they had a startup visa as well, which gave you more flexibility. So at this point, I think the job opportunity is there. They're there now. I know my own friends who are, or colleagues rather, who are there now. They have been working. So I think I was there at a time where it was a little bit of a economic downturn, but now things have really improved. But I must say, post-COVID, the situations are different everywhere. So when I say now, I mean it post-economic turnaround. But whoever's applying now should go and talk to people who are there, who've just passed out, and understand what the situation is post-COVID. Post-COVID world is different everywhere. So like do your research and make sure you get a first-hand experience of this from at least the recent graduates. There's an alumni page for TU Delft, and you can figure out a lot from there.
Right. So there are a lot of questions regarding the scholarship, and I would just ask them in one go. That
Yeah.
uh, do these scholarship, like what are your tips for somebody who is going to sit for an interview for the scholarship? How can they ace it? And does the extracurricular activities matter in your application?
Mm. Okay. So here's what I would say. Turn the tables around. There is a foundation that's giving millions away to people to go study abroad. What is the intention of them? Their intention is they have a certain amount of money and they want to give it to the people that are the most driven, most passionate, and have the highest chance of making a difference in the world. Are you one of them? How will you tell your story to them? Their only job is to listen and discover if you are one of them. Now, there is no tips and tricks to anything. You cannot commit fraud and get a scholarship. There's nothing you can do. You have to look at their job. You have to be in their shoes. They are trying to pick the people who have made the best choices. Have you made the best choices along the way? Can you show an evidence of before you're applying for masters, you have made choices along the way? Okay, you graduated of architecture. What did you choose to do? Not what did you do, what did you choose to do? And then based on that, if you wanted to go study product design, for example, have you tried doing product design? Do you understand its reality? Have you worked with a product designer? Have you understood what the challenges are? When you are applying to the course, have you looked up 10 courses? Why have you chosen this specific course out of 1,000 universities in the world? Okay, you have to explain that. So all of these things are rationale that the people on the other side are looking to discover, is this person the best chance they have? Because they're going to choose, in my time, they chose some 13 to 15 people, right? That's it. So they're going to choose the people that they think have made the best choices so far. If you can prove yourself or you can show yourself to do that, that's fine. That's it. So I think this as a narrative is very important because it's not about getting the scholarship alone. Even for you to make a bad choice of a college is terrible for your life either ways. So this, as if you just keep yourself accountable and authentic to that, to your own self and your experience, and then just take that to the person who's giving money and explain why. That's it. That's the point at which the scholarship happens. But if you are wrong all along about the courses you have chosen for yourself and all kinds of bad decisions along the way, you're not going to get anything. So don't look to bluff somebody into giving you a scholarship, and try to just be truthful to your process of going and spending an enormous amount of money abroad, and how can you make that the best experience for yourself, and you'll notice that there'll be people to support you.
That was extremely informative, Ankit. I mean, as I am attending this session, I'm just ticking those boxes in my head. Like, do I have a pitch for myself when I apply for scholarships? And I think this information is really needed for people out there, because you will not find it in any blogs or any webinars or any interviews. You will just know if you talk to someone who's been there.
Sure.
So, going back to more questions, like we have some Indian students who are wondering what life was like at the university. How did you manage food? If you were not on the scholarship, what would be the accommodation, cost and everything?
Yeah, I think so. I got about 800 euros a month through Inlaks. I think my real cost was something about 1,000. So I didn't know what I wanted. I was just grateful for what I got. I think, and this is 10 years ago. So 1,000 was like what you needed, like 950, 2,000, right? So my student housing was 450 euros. But other people got it at 350. So it varies between 350 to 450. So the golden rule of thumb is if you spend more than 30% of money on rent, you are already sinking yourself. So a good thumb rule is that, right? So I know that I was already hitting almost 40 to 50%. In fact, in mine it was 55%, right? So that is a hard. So for me, everything was a lot harder. Plus, in architecture, urban planning, you have to consider travel as part of your studio course. You spend on stationery, you spend on model making. So I think for me, it was a bit harder because I kind of didn't know I could have asked for more money. In fact, they had offered me more. I took less um, at that point. But I would keep that in mind that like look at your course and look at like are you going to have extra expenses because of the nature of your course. I kind of didn't know too much about that either because there was nobody to really talk to about it. So I do that, but like I think housing at that point you can say about 350 to 450, and then you'll buy a cycle, you'll buy a laptop, you'll buy all of those. So those also become add-on expenses. So yeah, something like that. I would say 1,100 is a good number to play around with. You do get jobs on the side in this university. If you apply in time, you have to kind of be really up and savvy about it. So if you're going abroad, look for these things. They are available to international students, but they are scarce. So I didn't do that because I was very like, hey, I've got this. Let me make the most of it. So I would spend my time learning and listing the library and doing all kinds of other stuff. I could have earned more money on the side, but I chose not to do that because it wasn't a priority for me. But for anyone else doing that, look out for these things because looking back, that's the one decision I would change because I saw it as an economic thing that hey, let me not do a job because I have money. But it wasn't about that. It was like if I had got 400 euros more, one, I would be less stressed because I had to manage. I was managing for a whole year's finances, and they would just give me for the whole year. I had to micromanage. It was a bit hard. If I had got a job, not only would I understand the culture better, I would understand work environments better. I would understand, how small other businesses work. There's a lot to learn. So I would say, like, even if you get scholarships, you should try to get a small job on the side with few hours. And Netherlands offers a lot of flexible working and stuff.
Right. So we were on the job part, and a question just came to me that how did the Indian job market accept you? Like after graduating from Netherlands, like were the offers pouring in, or you had to apply and go through the drill?
Yeah. So this is very specific to urban planning. That when I came back, it was hopeless. I was offered, I think, anywhere between 45 to 60,000 rupees when I came back, and it was absolutely deplorable. And that is one of the reasons why I started sensing local as well, with my business partner. And it was really because there was no recognition for urban planning as a professional discipline. At this point, 10 years forward, it's completely changed. So right now, when people come back, they will be in high demand. So it's a radically different environment. So it's an extremely useful discipline now, widely acknowledged by the Ministry of Housing, by town planning authorities, by cities. It is an emergent discipline, nevertheless. What I'm saying is that its societal value is still lower than it needs to be. You don't get paid as much as it would be abroad. Like I was at one point of time, I was working with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and earning like the lowest level, which is 15 euros a month. Sorry, 15 euros an hour, and it was enough to get me through. And when I came to India for a month, it was more than what my dad was earning, and it's nothing. It's peanuts, 15 euros an hour. But so what I'm trying to say is that abroad there are, if you get these opportunities, you do get paid quite decently. You get paid 2,000 once you get a job. Internships will pay you something like 750 to 900. I was on the higher end of things, but if you get a job, it's like very well paid, so you'll manage easily. But remember that there are constraints when you go abroad. There is a lot of local hiring that takes priority, so you have to kind of make those connections, which I found very difficult at that point. But now TU Delft and other institutions are really becoming international forward. They were not doing that back then. I think 1 or 2 years down the line, they really started understanding that if their demographics are going to be international, they need to do better. So I think that a lot is changing as well. It's a lot better now. Yeah, both India and otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, your experience just like inspires people to like just go for it, try it, and like outcome will be wonderful. So there
No,
are,
that's not the takeaway. You have to plan and be mindful about your experience,
yeah,
and
I
they'll
mean, when
not
you
be good
plan, yeah.
by default. In fact, there are only caveats in my journey, if I would say that, like at every stage, you have to be watchful uh, of this because competition is very high now. And I mean, you have to be really mindful of universities are not a given. They are living. There are people there doing whatever that they can screw up too. So you have to be really looking at yourself and be mindful about, hey, I am the one who has the money. I'm the one who's going everywhere. How do I present myself, and how do I take myself as the product that other people are sort of buying into? You have to reverse this whole strategy. You are not the customer. I mean, you are the product, right? You have to sell yourself. So really, but you have to first clarify to yourself. So, like, I would say, like, that's the focus for me. Like, it's you have to really create a journey that causes success to happen.
Yeah.
If nothing else. Yeah.
So we have couple of questions regarding, I mean, if you have knowledge on them, you can share it, like more than welcome, like about
Sure.
IELTS and what other universities that Inlaks, supports Canadian universities or
Uh, so Inlaks focus was for all the like the top universities like Harvard, Yale, and all the rest,
right.
right? But I think when I got the scholarship, not only was urban planning a discipline they had never heard of, but also TU Delft they had never heard of. So in 30 years of giving scholarships, they had never given it to either of them. And yet, when in the final round of interview, it was me against a person who had gone to MIT, and I still got it. And so I think for them, the way they look at it, and again putting on their shoes, right, they're like, what is the highest chance that this guy is going to get a good education, or girl is going to get a good? So they bank on colleges that have certain reputations and who have certain amount of credibility. So for them, they are looking at university good ranking universities and well-known universities as an indicator for success. That is all it is. Like, okay, we know that Yale is known for something. If you give them an obscure university, but you also have an obscure course, and if this is the best suited university for what you want to do, and they think that they want to support that, they will go ahead and support that. That's what they did with me. So treat the people who are giving scholarships as people with a job, and they're just trying to do their job. Can you help them do their job better? And can you be the person they sort of give the money to make their job a success?
Perfect. Thank you for that. And because Netherlands is an English speaking country, like you said, how important like is IELTS for that country and for the university as well?
What is IELTS? Sorry, I don't know. What is
It's an
IELTS?
English speaking test, like to qualify.
Oh, IELTS. It does the same
Yeah,
move.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We are different at the
You
same
have
time.
when I had to go, I believe I had to do it. Like it was a compulsory thing. But I don't know how much the school plays into it. But in Netherlands, Dutch and English are the prominent languages. But in the course, generally English is the most is the communication language. I mean, I think that if you're going to a place like that, if your English is struggling, you will also like. But then it's fine. Like you are coming from where you are, so you kind of have to look at it as a skill set.
Right.
It's important because you have to receive education in that certain language. So it's important that if you don't have the language, you will struggle to receive it.
I just want to understand, like you had worked couple of years before enrolling to this university. How did
Yeah.
that education, like working experience, helped you? Because people lose the dream of doing masters once they are into work, but I believe one should never like stop learning. So, how did that experience of working couple of years help you to choose your niche later on?
So I think I mentioned about my experience with the
Yeah,
public
yeah,
toilet and the
yeah.
urban man. So I worked with Matthew and Ghosh in Bangalore, and then I had a chance to work with Charles Korea in Bombay. And it was a good experience to learn, but I think I really missed the site. I never went to site. It was also 2008. I think
Right.
the economic recession was continuing from 2008 to 2011. So I kind of didn't have a very good on-site experience, and that kind of also took me away from architecture in a sense of really feeling the joy in it, because I was a very hands-on person, and I kind of missed all of that. And that drove me more and more to understand that if this is the kind of field I'm going to enter, I really don't want to work in it. I want to work in a space which is more hands-on, which is where learning has impact, where working has impact. So yeah, I kind of that was pretty much my experience of 2.5 years. I worked in Matthew and Ghosh for a year. I worked with Charles Korea for about 9-10 months. And then I worked on the public toilet project and with UDRI in Bombay for a year, which was the Fort Management Plan. So that was more or less what it is. But yeah, I think that I don't know if I answered all your questions.
I mean, you did, and the audience, I mean, they still are pouring in questions. But let's talk about your startup for a minute. Like, you have been in the
Sure.
market for, I guess, 7 years now. Now, what is the vision for your startup? How
6
do
this
you?
year.
Okay, I on the LinkedIn I saw like maybe 7 years, so 6 years. Uh,
Yeah.
how do you like plan to accelerate your startup and enable more um, urban planning in India? I mean, you guys have at least started the conversation about it.
Yeah, so Sensing Local, we have two parts. We have a partnership firm, which is Sensing Local, and then we have a foundation, which is the nonprofit. The goal of Sensing Local is to push innovation and experimentation in the urban planning space. So that sits between governance and planning, and you're kind of trying to tackle these environmental issues in as many places we get. Most of our work is still centered around Bangalore, but now we're trying to enter into other cities. The nonprofit, however, has a very different objective. So the nonprofit's objective is that, hey, a handful of experts cannot solve these problems. And so how do we enable 100,000 people to start caring? So I think the line that we keep storytelling in our head is that every person needs to become an environmentalist and an urbanist if they have to solve for the massive problems we have in the cities, both environmentally and civic wise, and now climate change. And so how do you improve the baseline of everybody? And the way to do that is to capacitate people, to democratize this knowledge, and to simplify urban planning. So then the foundation is all about building tools, platforms, and initiatives that are taking all our learnings and complexities, and also our work with our partners, and really translating that into tools, platforms, systems, all of that that can be adopted by a large segment of the population. So we then enable citizens and working young professionals to actually do that. So we've launched something called Citizen University, in which we are actually training, and it just got launched. So it's called citizen-university.in. Citizen University, if you look up, is a US-based organization by the same name, but if you put a dash, you'll find the Indian one. And so our goal there is that we've designed programs that expose people to civic infrastructure, civic problems, is to train people on softwares like GIS and how to problem solve in the urban space, and to learn participatory design. So a lot of people who are seeking to involve themselves in the civic space, or I can share it. I think the link. I don't know if there's a chat that I can share it in, but I can share uh, the link perhaps.
You can
Okay.
share in chat.
Okay, I've just shared. If
Yeah,
you would like to post it in the group. And so this is the
yeah.
initiative that we are launching now to capacitate everyone and really expose people to the complexities in the urban space, and how they can really become active citizens in their own right. And active citizenship is what we're chasing. There are also a couple of other tools that, like walkability audit tool and livability audit tools, that we are all moving into foundation. And the idea is to just go scale. How will you cater to 300 cities, 7,000 towns, um, in India, right? You can't do it with 10 urban planners. We have a huge shortage of urban planners. So yeah, yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
done. Yeah,
what you're doing, Ankit, is really revolutionary, and more power to you and your team. And we hope to see you making more strides and changes in your industry. Like, we'll be in touch for
sure.
this, and if some of the students today who want to get in touch with you, if you can let them know how they can get in touch with you, like obviously, or
Yeah,
Nebula also, the community.
yeah. So sensinglocal.in is our website. You can write to us at info@sensinglocal.in. Citizen-university.in is our citizen university initiative. There are a lot of new things happening. Instagram is a great page for it. We have Twitter pages. So Facebook is not as relevant anymore, but Instagram and Twitter is a great place
Yeah.
to be in touch with us. All our projects are made into videos. We have websites for everything. All our reports are alive online for free. So go check it out. And you can, Instagram is a great place for engagement, I think, in general. So go have a look. There are a lot of videos. You can see some of our work as well. Oh yeah,
Yeah, if you
and join the courses. Join Citizen University courses. That are right there. They're extremely affordable by design. So go for that.
Amazing. So what we'll do, Ankit, so when in Nebula we have enabled this option that, let's say this is a Nebula talk, we have your talk, and there is automatically a community generated at the back end where even you would be added.
Okay.
So you can share the links there, or you can send me, I'll share them there. And if
Yeah.
somebody wants to
Yeah.
ask question, they can ask you there, right?
they can ask there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can share these two links for now. I think Citizen University
Okay.
and something local, and then
Right. You have
Instagram is
shared
by
it
the
to me.
same name.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll share it. Yeah.
Insta is easy to share. Yeah.
It is. So if we have no more questions from the audience, and if Ankit, like if you have anything more to share, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, no, this is great. I do this every year with a lot of people who are going abroad. Don't
Okay.
feel that your challenges are only yours. Uh, Everybody goes through this challenge. And so, yeah, you have a community of people who are tackling the same thing. Yeah, I just want to say that. And also, like, give power to yourself. Like, don't give power away. Like, you are the person who's going to do everything anyway.
I mean, I know we marketed this session for Inlaks scholarship, but for me, it has turned out to be a personal motivation session also, where you gave so much advice on how to not let anything, push you down and not question your own worth. So thank you so much for that, Ankit. I know you have a meeting to go to.
Yeah,
So
sorry. Yeah,
no
I'm at a
worries. Thank you
conference,
so
so
much.
they kind of have to split. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much
most
for
welcome, and
joining.
yeah, we can engage on another platform for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you so much,
Yeah. Thank you
everyone.
for inviting me. Yeah. Bye.
Of course.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.